Stop the cap.
All right, I'm breaking from trying to upload all those. I keep trying to tell myself, don't make another video, don't make another video, don't make another video, because I need to upload. I need to upload these videos, and I'm just sitting on them. And somebody wanted me to go over and watch FD Signifier's video about, I don't know, something about Charlie Kirk death cult. And, I began listening to the video. I don't have 2 hours of time to just sit and listen to the video. I should pop in my headphones. An hour I can give you, but like 2 hours, I'm like, all right. And listen to me. I'm saying this as somebody who has made 2 hour videos in the past. But when FD Signifier puts out a video, it's like a full production. I was listening. I got maybe like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes in. And then, I started skipping around and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back to this. I'm going to get back to this later. Let me say that, well, let me start off by saying this. Because I've just been noticing this over the years. And this doesn't really have anything to do with FD Signifier. But I'm saying I'm going to try, even the people that, say things that piss me off, I'm going to try to take a easier, less angry or confrontational approach to addressing, people who I would consider my contemporaries that I disagree with. And the reason I say that is because, stylistic Nutword TV, his death, it kind of affected me. I mean, I've talked to Styles, on the phone. Like especially I've had three-way conversations between Styles, myself, Captain Solo, and I mean we had some disagreements, but there was a level of respect there. Um and I'm saying the respect grew like, later on. But we when we first came online, like I said before, it was Ductician, it was the that whole MRA, the white manosphere, that Thugtician was really dabbling in that. I already knew from the go. I was like, it's going to be a problem because as soon as we get into how white supremacy negatively affects black men, economically speaking, which affects our relationships, I was like, the white boys ain't trying to hear that, and that's what I was on. And Thugtician, he found that out the hard way. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm saying, then we got into the whole, thugs versus ELs and who was supposed to be the premier black man in the black community, and how the image of the thuggish black man took over the black community, and speaking on well, if you come from privilege or if you got two-parent home and solid background, yeah, you can talk that shit. That being me. But when you come from broken home, when you come from poverty, when you come from the streets and you don't have the support system, right? It is what it is, right? And that was Styles, right? And so, and Captain Solo, he was kind of like the mediator because, he grew up both ways. He grew up, with a, and it started out in a two-parent home, and parents were basically gainfully employed, and then things changed. Parents got divorced. His mother got shot 5 times with a 38 revolver and lived. And there was a time where Captain Solo was homeless and then ended up living underneath a bridge, and then joined the Marines, and I mean, so it was a whole bunch of stuff, so he could understand both sides of the spectrum. There were times in his life where, he spent time in the suburbs, with like one of his mother's like remarriages and stuff. And then there was another time where he spent in, he was, basically in, in the city. So he could understand both perspectives to a degree. And so, we had those conversations. But anyway, how am I tying this back to like FD Signifier? I'm saying, looking back at it, I mean, everything from Kevin Samuels, to David Carroll to, Stylistic. And I know there's a bunch of other names that I'm missing. Somebody was asking about Avenue Rants. I haven't heard from Avenue Rants. Avenue Rants was on Gen X, and, it's like, what people got to recognize, it's like that window of 20 years, people die. Like you get you got like your first 20 years. Okay, you're in your 20s. Then you got your second 20 years. Then you're in your 40s. Then you got your third 20 years, and then you're in your 60s. And by the time you get to your third set of 20 years, those 2 decades. By the time you get to your third cycle of 20 years, a lot of people have died, man. They've fallen off. You know what I mean? If you come into the conversation in your 20s, and then you got somebody who's already in, their 50s, you know what I mean? And hell, yeah, I mean, 10 years passes, 20 years passes. If 10 years passes, they're 60, right? You're in your 30s. If 20 years passes, you're in your 40s, they're now 70 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, it's just my recognition that, we're all here for a limited amount of time. You know what I mean? Like the conversations that we're having is, I'm not very spiritual, but I'm just saying when looking at it, people got a lot of animosity. They got a lot of hate. They want to argue and fight and everything else like that. Like all the people, whoever, even your adversaries, you have a cultural reference in time of things that you can discuss like right now. Like when you bring up movies, like, 1,000 years from now, like people aren't going to be talking about, they're not going to use Home Alone as a cultural reference. You know what I mean? They're not going to use, Michael Jackson as a cultural reference, or any of these people that we know, you know what I'm saying? Like we don't, you might have, somebody, Michael Jackson, people will bring him up like he's the Mozart of modern times, because we talk about, Mozart, Bach, Beethoven and stuff like that. Like when people, think of, music and everything, but we don't know much about anything else that happened in that era. We don't, so I'm just saying, um, everybody should have a level of appreciation, even when it comes to your adversaries and people that you disagree with. Um, the level of appreciation of, the fact that, you're actually having the discourse or the dialogue, because in particularly, even with the people that you disagree with, your most ardent critics, or, people that you actually really have to battle and dissect their arguments, man, there's only so many people that you can do that with. If other people, like if you engage in some serious debating or some serious back and forth, or at least where the person, because you're trying to understand where they're coming from, and you may disagree with 8 out of the 10 things that they say, but maybe 2 of them you're like, all right, you give me something to think about. I'm just going to examine this piece right here that you brought up. That's something that I definitely learned from Captain Solo. You know what I mean? He always talks about the toothpaste. Like, no, 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 no. There's still some toothpaste in there, man. Like squeeze that shit out and examine that little bit of toothpaste. Instead of just discarding the whole thing, because that's what a lot of people do, and I see that a lot in a lot of I've been around long enough to see that in a lot of people's tactics and debates. Where they straw man. They try to do character assassinations. They try to label people, with a title or a label that is dismissed. Like it's like, okay, I'm talking to, I don't know, a white conservative, and we disagree about certain things, and then I go, he's a Nazi. You know what I mean? Like unless he's at legit like running around, saying that I'm a Nazi, then I don't think that that's constructive in conversation, with labeling people. I mean, the person may very well be a Nazi, and they may be trying to hide it. But I'm saying you don't start the conversation off with, he's a Nazi, he's a Klansman, he's in the manosphere, that's the woke left, like all that bullshit that Trump does. Um, all the labeling, it gets the conversation nowhere, and you don't get into the meat and the potatoes. And I do understand that there's a lot of people that they do that shit intentionally because they don't want to get to the meat and the potatoes, right? They want to, distract. They want to you, and they want to just derail any real discussion, about what the actual topic is. I was watching some clip of, somebody did a video, I think it was TYT did a video, and they were bringing up the points that black people bring up, or the points that Malcolm X brought up, because they had basically Lil Wayne up there doing a bunch of interviews, talking to Skip, racism. Well, what's racism? That's like, really, Lil Wayne, like, really, for real, what I mean? And we all know that, like, but see, and then, he was up there with Trump, and talk like Roland Martin was ripping him apart about, basically saying that, what did he say? Something about Trump and how great and wonderful something that he did, for how he's helping black people, or something like that. You know what I mean? And Trump's track record Trump helps black people and doesn't help black people at the same time. You know what I mean? Because when it comes to funding HBCUs, Trump, from what I've seen, the information that I've seen, Trump, he puts money, he makes sure that HBCUs get their money. But then in other regards, he'll hurt the black community, like, with the reclassification of professional degrees, and like, who is that most affecting? It's mostly affecting black female nurses, right? And it affects things like, student loan forgiveness, and, things like that. But I'm saying, so, Trump is like a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to, black people and policies as it pertains to, educational attainment. But what was I saying? I was going somewhere with this. Yeah, like, so Lil Wayne, he's up there, same thing with, Morgan Freeman, stop talking about racism, like that bullshit. But then what was I gonna say? There was something I was specifically gonna say about that, and hold on a second. Oh yeah, I remember people trying to derail the conversation. Yeah, white supremacy. They again, I've said this before. They stopped having those conversations, those long form conversations, like when they used to have, like, I don't know, William F. Buckley and Malcolm X, because they believed in their own racial superiority. They believed that white men were far more intellectually superior than black men, so they thought that they would have these sort of open debates with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You can go and pull up the interviews. I mean, even one of Martin Luther King's last interviews, you know what I mean? He was, I don't know who he was being interviewed by, but, he was, the guy was asking questions, and he was pushing back and responding, with solid responses, solid intellectual responses. Same thing with Malcolm X. When they used to have those panels, and they sit up there, and Malcolm X would sit there with his legs crossed, and, they were platforming those people. White supremacy doesn't do that anymore. White supremacy gets its shills, and white supremacy goes and gets, black people who don't know what they're talking about. They love to get entertainers. This is something that Malcolm X warned about. They go and get entertainers to speak on black issues. And unfortunately, we got a lot of black entertainers that don't know when the hell to stand down. Hell, we got non-black entertainers now, like Cardi B, that don't know when to stand down. You know what I mean? Like, yo, you don't need to speak on this. You know what I mean? Go get Dr. Claude Anderson. Go get Dr. Tommy Curry. Go get Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Go get people that, that actually know what they're talking about, right? Did I say Claude Anderson? Yeah, go get Claude Anderson. Go get these people, right? Go get the creators of Contract with Black America. Go get them and sit down and have a conversation with them. But see, they don't do that. They go and they get a bunch of goofies and then put them up there, and then say, okay, these people represent black people. These people represent the entirety of the black race, or the grassroots, or whatever. And they don't. Go get Professor Black Truth. Go do an interview on him. They ain't going to do an interview on him. They're not going to do an interview on him. You know what I'm saying? They're going to do an interview on the goofies. Okay? So, I'm saying all this to say that, when it comes to the people that I disagree with, I'm going to try to, what's the word? What's the phrase I'm looking for? Embrace them in the moment, even the people that I disagree with, because, it's like when, I've been around long enough to like, I'm telling you, when these people die, it's like, damn, like, you don't get to have that conversation anymore. You know what I mean? You don't get to, it's like, you don't get to go back and forth. You don't even get, you can't even run current situations. You can't even, watch their evolution, or they can't watch your evolution, and say, yeah, man, what I was saying back in the day, yeah, man, that was total bullshit, man. I see the errors of my ways, or something like that. Right? Because I've had that, with Captain Solo quite a few times. Quite a few times I've called him and be like, yeah, I see what you were talking about. And he's called me quite a few times and be like, yeah, I ran your ideas past somebody else and they were in alignment with you and I had to stand down. Like that has gone on. I mean, it continues to go on. That type of shit goes on because we'll be going back and forth. We'll be going at it. And but see, it's just, it's a sample of one, and I'm a sample of one. He's a sample of one. You know what I mean? But then, what we end up doing is I go and I run his shit by a bunch of other people. I'll run his ideas, no judging. I just run his ideas out, and then he'll go and do the same thing. And then, sometimes, when you get feedback from other people, it's like, okay, so he's not the only one that operates and thinks and moves like this. And I'm saying it's not just with Captain Solo. I'm saying, this is with other people as well. Right? I do think that people can gain a lot from, discourse and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, as much as there's a lot of stuff when it comes to FD Signifier, when I'm debating him or arguing with him, because he be pissing me off sometimes because sometimes I'm like, he does look like a shill, and, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of name calling, but, it's like, nigga, you should know better than that. There's just certain things that he does, certain phrases that he parrots that make me say to myself that he's a shill. I've seen the pattern. The stuff about like what he's talking about in this video where he's talking about gun control. And I only really want to address one part of this video. But I'm just saying I don't hate FD Signifier. He irritates the fuck out of me when it comes to, certain topics, and his like, it sounds to me like the feminization of boys and, not really understanding like real consequences. I got a video talking about that, about women and low birth rates. And I'm like, it's about to be Mad Max and the Road Warrior out here. You want to talk about, feminism, like, everything's going to be just diplomacy. I'm like, do you really understand what a collapse looks like? And you're talking about, superpowers versus superpowers. Like men are fighting a national battle, an international, superpower battle, and women are running around talking about the 4B movement and whatnot. And I'm like, do you know what happened? Okay, let the birth rates go to zero. Do you know what happens when that shit hits the floor, and the other group has more troops than what you got? You know what I mean? So it's like women think in certain terms, and I see that from all of the men that I see as feminized that subscribe to the woke left. They don't look at the consequences, for what they are at face value. Hell, they don't even, because they believe in gender fluidity and all that other nonsense, they don't even recognize, like, motherfucker, you gonna be the one that's doing the fighting. Like, FD Signifier is the man of the house. If there is a bump in the night, he is going to be expected to get up and handle that. Obviously, calling 911 would be the smart thing, but, how long is it going to take them to get there, depending on where he lives? It's going to take them 15 minutes, 20 minutes? How long is it going to take them to get there? And can you really, rely, on just that? So listening to his video, he's talking about the call. He starts the video off, with talking about gun control. And I cringe every freaking time I hear black people talking about, we need more gun control because, the whiteys are shooting each other up in churches and schools. You know what I'm saying? First off, the overwhelming homicide in America is black on black violence. When you want to talk about gun violence, it's disproportionately black people killing other black people because black people are living and existing in prolonged exposure to poverty. Okay. Yes, mass shootings are freaky and they freak everybody out because, they're perceivably more dangerous than inner city violence because, especially when it comes to, here's like where FD Signifier, like, will, he'll speak against capitalism and classism and everything else like that. But he's not worried about inner city violence because, he's making, $300,000 a year or whatever off of his YouTube channel. Okay, so because of that, what I mean, his family's not subject to inner city violence, right? He's out there living in the burbs and shit, right? So he doesn't have to worry about that problem, right? And so, when it comes to the mass shootings, the reason why mass shootings freak everybody else, and freak everybody out, and I talked about this before, they freak everybody out because, they're random. You could be at a park, you could be at a mall, you could be at a movie theater, and then, here comes the Joker, right? That you could be at the beach, right? That's why it freaks people out because it's indiscriminate and it can just randomly happen anywhere just because somebody had a bad day. Where inner city violence is very narrowly focused, it's usually interpersonal beefs. You killed my brother. Now I gotta clap back. I gotta respond. You owe me money. Now I gotta clap back and I gotta respond because I can't let people think that you're taking advantage of me, right? You get into all that back and forth stuff, right? But the you could end you know inner city, violence or black on black crime, you could end that overnight with some gainful employment, full medical and dental, you know what I mean, and enough money for men to support their families. Point blank, period. But we can never have that conversation. It's always the pathologizing of black men. Oh, they're just like that. Ooh, they're just like that, right? When we all know that, when there was a post World War II industrial economy, crime rates were lower in the black community. Marriage rates were higher in the black community. There was a rise of a black middle class. So, when you take money off the table, I'm like, yeah, you're going to have those type of problems. Now, when it comes to what's going on with, white men and them shooting the place up, obviously, it's not as much of a money issue as it is, for the black community. Although I do think that their issue has a lot to do with the lack of positive male identity and them wanting to maintain control and maintain white supremacy and the white elite boomers not sharing the wealth with the younger white men because the younger white men are the ones that are shooting the damn place up. And when you look at what's going on with them, a lot, I forget, I was using like Chat GPT and I was looking at like trying to get a breakdown, and I forget what the numbers were. But I think it was slightly more of the men. They weren't they weren't in a high position, in life, whether it was educationally or whether it was in terms of their, the jobs or accessibility women or being married. I gotta try to pull that up again. I'll see because they got Chat GPT 5.1 now. And I'm going to use some other. I got Anthropic. I got Gemini. The Chinese got a DeepSeek, and they got a new one called Kimi. So there's sources I can try to pull up and figure out like what is the actual profile, of these guys. But I'm just saying it's not as economical, in my opinion, as it is with the black community. Not saying that it's not economical, because I definitely think that there's a bunch of young white men that wouldn't be shooters if they were gainfully employed. I'm not talking about the guys that come from, that live with their parents and they come from, a good home and they're making and their parents make money. No, I'm talking about when men can stand on their own 2 feet. And that's what's lacking in the white community right now, and is the economic viability of young white men. And so, not only have we seen crash outs, but I anticipate seeing even more crash outs. As this economy goes into the abyss. But anytime I see a black man talking about gun control, it makes me cringe. It makes me cringe. I mean, the rest of the video, I didn't watch all of it, but I skipped, around and everything. I'm like, okay, white supremacy this, white supremacy that. Like, I'm like, do you honestly think that black people or FD Signifier's family is going to be safer if we have less guns in society and black people are outnumbered by white people like 5 to 1? Like, do you honestly believe that? Right? With these sociopaths, that we have to fucking deal with, in America. And I don't know, like FD Signifier, like the other thing that I cringe at is where this whole idea that the white liberal is somehow black people's savior. They don't do anything for black people, in particularly black men. A lot of it is window dressing, and this is something that Dr. Curry, has talked about and discussed. It's like, can the squeaky wheel please get the oil, right? Everybody, oh, the black male, oh, it's toxic. This, oh, black male's the problem. Oh, da 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 da. Okay, what are the programs? What is the support for black males? There hardly isn't any. You know what I'm saying? Or did I say that right? Yeah, there hardly isn't, and there hardly is any. That's what I'm going to say. That was double negative. There hardly is any. And white liberals don't want to particularly help black boys. You know what I mean? And if I'm not mistaken, I think FD Signifier has a son. You know what I mean? So you just end up with a situation where, okay, if everybody's disarmed, we're going to have a better society. No, what are you talking about? The UK is disarmed. And we saw, what is that, a couple months ago, when they had their little anti-immigrant protest, right? And you had, black people, they were all nervous and shit, and you had the girl crying and being escorted back to her house, and the whole thing where they, anything happens, you had the what was he, the Rwandan boy that stabbed like the three, was he Rwandan? I don't know what he was. I think it was, yeah, he was Rwandan, I think. He stabbed the three girls, the three white girls, and the white people went crazy and they went ballistic. They're not going to talk about the Zimbabwe boy that those white boys had him, kissing their boot. You know what I mean? In the type of anti-black shit that they do over there. But I'm saying that's a disarmed society. You know what I mean? And black people, you get victimized and shit like that. I don't know where black people think that they're going to live in a majority white nation and that somehow they're safe, that they're safe if everybody is disarmed. But the main thing I want to point out in this video is, like, I don't like gross intellectual dishonesty. And I already saw that where FD Signifier in the video. You see, and I'm saying what irritates me about FD Signifier is he should be smarter than that. I consider him, he's not dumb. Like, FD Signifier is not dumb. This is why he's irritating to me. Okay, because smart people who are, when they're trying to push an agenda, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you're way too smart for that. You're not seeking truth. You're seeking an agenda. And that's like, well, that's what I see from him. You know what I mean? So he played the clip of Charlie Kirk, talking about, we're going to, what did he say? Something about, like, we need some, you're not going to be able to avoid gun deaths. And I've seen leftists all over the place use this clip. It's out of context. They used this clip in order to try to say, oh, see, and haha, and Charlie Kirk, and he was pro Second Amendment, and he got killed by guns. Don't get it twisted. Charlie Kirk was on some fuck shit because, he tried to deflect. There was a conversation that he was being asked right before he was shot was about transgenders and mass shootings. Because you had the two transgender, you had the trans the girl in Tennessee that shot up the school. I think it was Tennessee, and then you had this guy in what was it, Michigan, that shot up the Catholic school. He was on some trans shit. And so they tried to make it like, the people on the right tried to make it like it was some leftist, wokest, trans, LGBTQ, shit. And I'm like, first off, let's do the same bullshit that y'all do when y'all run around and try to deflect and start screaming per capita and all this other nonsense. The overwhelming vast majority of mass shooters have been right-wing white males. That is what they have been. They have not been trans. They have not been LGBTQ. They've not been black per capita. They've been white males. So to sit there and try to kick up a whole bunch of dust, and this is where I'll agree with FD Signifier. Yeah, when it comes to the when they want to criticize mass shooters, they only want to criticize mass shooters when they're on the left. But when they're on the right, they try to downplay it, sweep it underneath the rug, act like it wasn't that, try to transmutate the person into a leftist. And everybody knows that the vast majority of the mass shooters are right-wingers. They're right-wingers, they're white supremacists, they have, far-right ideology. Like, this is what they have. But what I don't like what FD Signifier did in his video is where, he, hold on a second. Let me go over here and pull this Charlie Kirk. He didn't play the Charlie Kirk clip in full context. And there's a number of it. The same thing with the whole black pilot thing. Charlie Kirk, because even I criticized Charlie Kirk for that. But when I heard the clip in its full context, I was like, that's not what he was saying. If you haven't heard the black pilot, the whole thing with Charlie Kirk and the black pilot, listen to the clip in its full context. He was basically saying what somebody else would be saying. Like, he's like, I don't want to think like that. But they went and took it and made it like they just cut it and clipped it. And they were like, oh, Charlie Kirk, black pilots and yeah, he wouldn't want to fly with a black pilot. And that wasn't the context. Charlie Kirk, what is this? Gun control, full quote. Full quote. It's on YouTube. You can go and you can pull it up. Here it is. It's about 3 minutes long. I'm going to play the whole 3 minutes. And this is why like FD Signifier's little clip it and shit. That's why that shit is irritating. Hold on. Here we go. Here's the full context of what Charlie Kirk said about gun control. And again, I don't like Charlie Kirk. Never did. Black fatigue and all that other bullshit. Charlie Kirk engaged in stochastic terrorism against the black community. However, I'm not big on, all the, you're debating somebody or you're arguing somebody's points and then you want to take it out of context and then act like you won the debate. And I can't stand when people do that shit. But anyway, here's the full context of Charlie Kirk talking about gun control, since FD Signifier used this in his clip. Hopefully it's loud enough for me to play it for y'all.
How's it going, Charlie? I'm Austin. I just had a question related to Second Amendment rights. We saw the shooting that happened recently, and a lot of people are upset. But I'm seeing people argue for the other side that they want to take our Second Amendment rights away. How do we convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan, but I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician, or maybe I would, I don't know, but because I actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Come on.
And if that talk scares you, wow, that's radical, Charlie. I don't know about that. Well, then you have not really read any of the literature of our founding fathers.
Yep.
Number two, you've not read any 20th century history. You're just living in Narnia. By the way, if you were actually living in Narnia, you would be wiser than wherever you're living, because C.S. Lewis was really smart. So I don't know what alternative universe you're living in.
Yep.
You just don't want to face reality that governments tend to get tyrannical, and that if people need an ability to protect themselves and their communities and their families. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price.
Wow.
And that is part of liberty.
Wow. Go on.
Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year.
Wow.
That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road.
Wow.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen.
Right.
You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home,
Yes.
by having more armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe.
Sure.
So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks.
Yes.
How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns. Because everyone's armed. If our money and our sporting events and our airplanes
Wow.
have armed guards, why don't our children?
See, that's the full context. Is that as controversial as the people on the left try to make it be? No, it's not. You know, like I remember there was a guy, he drove trucks for a living. And he drove a school bus during the day, and then, you know, at night he drove a truck for Best Buy, and he was hauling TVs. And he made the point that he's like, what fucks me up is that I get paid more hauling TVs around than I get paid hauling people's children around, people's future as a bus driver. He's like, I get paid more hauling TVs for Best Buy around than I get paid transporting, you know, people's children, you know, to school to make sure that they get there safely. Right? Like Charlie Kirk, he didn't not give a solution. He gave a solution. I've been on the same tip, you know, when it comes to, you know, the school shootings. Why aren't there armed guards at the schools? Now, when it comes to people I've talked to who are in education and work in predominantly white school districts, you know what I was told? I was told that the white people, right, because black communities had metal detectors in schools since the 1980s. You know, there's been virtually no shootings, you know, on in particular, well, black people, you know, have totally different psychology. Black people is very personal. You know what I mean? Black people focus on the person that they're mad at or the person that did them wrong. White people, they get on some I want to kill everybody tip. I've already talked about that before. But what I'm saying is, you know, the black community has had virtually no shootings, you know, at schools. But when it comes to, and particularly, you know, Mass shootings. I think that, there's been, I think there was what was it, in Georgia? There was a kid who brought a gun to school and then shot his classmate over some personal beef type of shit. But I think that was a mixed school. That wasn't exclusively a black school. You go to the inner city, there's shootings outside of the school. There's shootings in the neighborhood, but there's no shootings in the school. Black schools have, in the inner city, they have metal detectors, they have armed security guards. But in the white community, they don't have that. And you know why the white community doesn't want that? They don't want that because it would be a testament to the fact that white people are actually dysfunctional. And again, not only dysfunctional, but dysfunctional as the dominant members of society. See, it's okay for the marginalized group to be dysfunctional and then claim that their dysfunction is simply a byproduct of who they are or what they are. But when it comes to white people, when they got all the resources and they're supposed to be the example of what civilized human beings are supposed to be, right? If you put metal detectors in their school, then it's an acknowledgement that they have dysfunction in their community. And it is more important for them to deny the fact that they have dysfunction in their community than for them to actually acknowledge it and make it to where their kids are safe. So that's why they don't want armed security guards. What do you mean? We don't have those type of problems. Actually, you do. Those are inner city black people problems. No, actually you do. We don't have mass shootings in the black community in inner city schools. You all do. You know what I mean? What's going on out there in the burbs, man? I mean, shit, man. I was watching the 6 o'clock news, man. What happened in the burbs? What's funny about me making that joke is that's exactly one of the things that happened with Cap on the job when he was working at GM. There was a white guy, who used to rag about, man, I stay out of the city, man. There's so much violence in the city on the 6 o'clock news. And then there was a shooting out in the suburbs on the outskirts of, Detroit. And Cap, he took it upon himself to rub that shit in. He was like, hey, man. He was like, man, I'm glad I don't live in the burbs, man. I'm glad I live here downtown in the city, man. Because, man, what's going on out there in the burbs, man? All that shooting and killing. The white guy was like, all right, touche. You got me. Nah, man, what's going out there in the burbs, man? I mean, man, whew, I'm glad I live in the city. Cause man, I wouldn't want to be out there where all that crime is taking place, all those mass shootings, So he was, Cat was rubbing this shit in, it's hilarious, But it's he gave the solution. Arm your schools. You got to arm society. Put guards in front of the schools. You put guards in front of everything else, right? But when it comes to the schools, oh no, we can't do that. I just don't understand black men like FD Signifier. I just don't. You know what I mean? You're the man of the house. If there's a bump in the night, you're going to be expected to protect your family. You're going to be, if the person's in the house, like I said, and you got to wait, what, you going to wait 10 minutes for the police to get there? It would be one thing if he said, and I don't even agree with this, but I mean, it would be one thing to say, yeah, I believe in having a handgun, but I don't believe in AR-15s. Like, even Ebony K. Williams, she believes in self-defense and having a handgun. She just don't like the big black rifles. She just don't like AR-15s, the ones you can reach out and touch somebody. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's the most effective tool that anybody can have in their arsenal. America is not a homogeneous society. So when it comes to, social safety nets, like what you see in Norway and Sweden and the Scandinavian countries, Finland, it doesn't exist in the United States. So you got wealth equality. You got people who are struggling. You know what I mean? The reality is you're going to have to defend yourself against your fellow man way more than you're ever going to have to defend yourself against the federal government. Not to mention the fact that I don't understand the people on the left running around like FD Signifier. Oh, Donald Trump, he's tearing up the Constitution. Oh, federal government. I mean, if there's never been a greater threat to democracy than the very things that Donald Trump is currently doing, with his administration. And it's hilarious for the left to sit there and talk. Oh, we need gun control. I thought you were the ones that are talking about how Donald Trump is tyrannical and he's tearing up the Constitution and unraveling democracy, right? I mean, wouldn't now be the prime time, to at least be ready if some shit were to go down with the Second Amendment? And I got to ask the same question on the people on the far right, because they're always running around talking about, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. They're always running around talking about that. And I'm like, do you not see what this motherfucker is doing? You know what I mean? They just, it's not the time. It's never the time. You're never going to get the blessings of the federal government to topple or overthrow the federal government, regardless of whether it's being tyrannical or not. Again, this is in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. It's right in there. It's written in there. Charlie Kirk was 100% right, 100% correct about why the Second Amendment is there. You're talking about a group of white people who, told King George to kiss their ass, right? And they fought, had a revolutionary war, to gain their independence, as the 13 colonies, of America. That's what they did. If they lost, they would have been hung and quartered and all that other shit. That's what would have happened. Okay, and we would be, the UK. We would be Canada, the United States of Canada. That's literally what we would be. And again, if you really look into, the British Crown, the King Charles owns everything. The freaking all these people that, I'm Canadian. I'm like, yeah, you're a royal subject of the British Crown. No, we're not. We're independent. No, you're not. You didn't even have a constitution until 1982. The prime minister of Canada, has to report to the King's Privy Council and take oaths to the crown. Look who is the head of the military when it comes to the Canadian military. Look who's the head of the military when it comes to the New Zealand military, the Australian military, and what other location around the world is, controlled by the British Crown? Because it was South Africa. But it's King Charles. King Charles is head of the military. Like, why is King Charles' face up there? You know what I'm saying? King Charles owns like 99% of the land in England. The people go ahead, look it up. You lease the land for like 100 years or something, right? All this stuff where it's like, could they take the land back if he wanted to? Yes, he could, because it's his land. All of England is King Charles' land. Look it up, Google it. You see? So, some of y'all be killing me with this, just a historical take on the Second Amendment. You're talking about it, but the reason why the Second Amendment exists in America is because white Americans fought against the British Crown and gained their independence. Everybody else, because the British Crown didn't want to lose all of its commonwealth, all of its colonies, the British Crown went through what was known as royal ascension, which basically gave, its territories the illusion of, independence and self-governance and autonomy. But at the end of the day, King Charles can pull rank on the shit. Hell, again, the freaking House of Lords, why are they even there? They don't vote for the House of Lords. Not to mention, King Charles can veto any bill before it even hits the floor. He has that option. You see? So again, the illusion of freedom. It's the freaking monarchy. So you have to understand the context of why the Second Amendment was in place. The Second Amendment is in place because, let's call it what it is, because white men don't trust other white men. That's why the Second Amendment is in place. And if white men don't trust other white men with power, as a black person living in a nation with a track record and a history of nothing but savagery, being the victims of savagery at the hands of the system of white supremacy, and you have the ability, you fought for the ability to be not only recognized, as American citizens, but as human beings, and fought to have the exact same rights as white people in America. When it comes to the Second Amendment, why, if Charlie Kirk is sitting up there talking about how the Second Amendment protects his freedoms from the tyrannical government that is a white government, then why wouldn't black people talk about protecting their rights and their freedoms and their existence from that same white tyrannical government and, the foot soldiers of the system of white supremacy? I do not understand this when it comes to black people. And I don't even have to trip about it, because I'm grateful at the fact that the majority of young black men, and a growing population of black men do not subscribe to FD Signifier's position. And this is just another reason why, the Democrat Party doesn't fuck with black men. They don't want to do anything for black men, and black men are not going to be out here caught with nothing but our ass. With nothing but our ass. That's not going to happen. With all the hostilities, all this stochastic terrorism, because that's what it is. It did the same thing to the Jews. Talk about blame everything on the Jews. Oh, it's the Jews. It's the Jews. We have to engage in the final solution. What do you think the conversations about black fatigue are? What do you think the focusing on DeCarlos Brown when they've defunded mental health in America since John F. Kennedy? What do you think that is when it comes to what they're trying to tenderize us up for the purge, for the day of the rope, as was written in the Turner Diaries? What do you think all that is? Blame black people. Oh, they want to kill us. Oh, white people are the biggest victims. Oh, black men are the biggest threat to white women. When you got white women that are literally sitting on social media talking about how they want to sit on black peen and they want the dark meat.
Okay, I want the dark meat. Corn. That looks amazing.
What's your type?
I think my type is physically the opposite of me. So, dark hair, dark skin, dark eyes. That's what I like.
You know what I'm saying? Just get the fuck out of here. But see, that type of rhetoric to me, I already talked about, me having an issue with how black men, we don't seem to support the Second Amendment from a political stance. We only support it by, exercising it legally or illegal. We don't give a fuck. But when it comes to actual policy on that, we associate the Second Amendment with the people on the right, and we say, oh, we can't vote for the people on the right because they're racist and they're anti-black. And so, we end up being in these blue enclaves where there's nothing but a bunch of gun control. Whether it's California or New York, it's nothing but a bunch of gun control. Only black people that actually exercise the Second Amendment to the fullest capacity are black people who essentially live in the South. Because if you live in any of the major if you live on the West Coast, if you live on the East Coast, in the Northeast, or on the West Coast, or in the middle part of the country, like Illinois, you can't exercise your Second Amendment rights, or very poorly, very weakly. And I don't know why black people are so cool with that. When you want to run around and you want to say, oh, the white man's the boogeyman. Oh, they're coming to get you. They're coming to get you. Right? You want to talk about how racist they are, the policies that they put in place. The stochastic terrorism. Oh, I got black fatigue. You see the comments. Why don't we just purge these blacks? Why don't we just get rid of them? We should have left them in chains. You expect me to give up my Second Amendment rights in a country where you got white boys writing comments on YouTube talking about we should have left these monkeys in chains? That's what you expect. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Black people are retarded when it comes to, and I shouldn't even say black people, because again, a lot of these people, like FD Signifier, as I see him, are Democrat shills. That is what they are. They are shills. Shilling. Shilling. Oh, please, sire, may I have a few more shillings? There's an agenda there. You know, FD Signifier, who's the other brother? There's a brother on, he's kind of like the zestier version of FD Signifier. He's on Instagram. His content is good. I like his content. But he's another one. He got dreads, he wears glasses, he's got a beard. He's the zestier version of FD Signifier. FD Signifier, he can be zesty, but he ain't that zesty. But the dude on Instagram, he's like super zesty. You know, he got a lisp. He talks with a lisp. But his content is good. His content is excellent. It's just always, I just can't co-sign as a heteronormative, cisgendered, black. I can't co-sign this inclusion of the non-conforming, non-binary, LGBTQ, transgender, all that other stuff. And then everybody's looking at black men like, you need to man up and protect the community, and you need to act like real men and act like other races of men and control the economic landscape. And I don't need to listen to a nigga because a nigga, y'all ain't got no jobs. Y'all ain't controlling nothing. The white man control everything. And how come y'all ain't controlling nothing? But actually, I don't want y'all to control nothing because I don't believe in men controlling nothing, because control that's part of the system of white supremacy. We don't believe in control. We're anti-control. We don't like control over here. But you black men, y'all weak because y'all don't control nothing. I cannot stand the fucking community as it pertains to that type of shit. They want black men to take on patriarchal responsibilities devoid of black male leadership. And I'm like, no, you want the problems fixed? Oh, I'll fix the problems, but the problems are going to be fixed on black men's terms. The problems are not going to be fixed to matriarchal or LGBTQ or anything goes, all inclusive, everything. No, there's going to be standards that black men are going to put in place, because there's going to be rules and regulations that the young men have to follow. You know what I mean? Like Negan in The Walking Dead. Rape is against the rules. You see, that has to be enforced. And if you have rules that men have to follow that are going to be enforced, there's going to be rules that women and children are going to have to follow that are going to be enforced. But see, y'all want to have it, where men take on the burden of responsibility and the lion's share of responsibility, building, maintaining, defending, and all that goodness, right? But then you want to be able to run around and do whatever the fuck you want to do. I'm like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. It's not on the backs of black men's, blood, sweat, and tears, time, and energy. That's not what's going to happen. When you're providing for somebody, when you're, facilitating opportunities, resources, yeah, you're going to have substantial say in what the fuck goes down. It's not going to be a free for all. And this is why, some black men, even listening to much of Dr. Curry's, commentary, this is why some black men, they see black women, and these other forces, LGBTQ, they see them as enemies, because they would rather side with white zaddy and the system of white supremacy, which the white supremacists already know. They would rather side with them and get, whatever trinkets, whatever they can get from them, as opposed to aligning with black men. Because the reality is the system of white supremacy will provide resources to black women in particularly, but without being in the day-to-day operations of black women, without being in black women's hair. See, if a black man, if he's laying the foundation and he's paying for shit, he's going to be calling the shots and calling the show and saying the things that, what she can and cannot do, or what he does and does not like. You know what I mean? Hey, that dress you got on, that outfit you got on, that's a little bit too revealing, and I don't particularly care for it. Go back inside and change. See, they don't want to hear that. Even if he's paying for everything and whatnot, they don't want to hear that. But see, white zaddy, white government doesn't do that. White government just cuts a check and says, do with it as you will, Keisha. And see, that's why, the women prefer that type of dynamic, because white supremacy's not in their hair. It's not telling them what to do on a day-to-day on a day-to-day basis. Black men would, just like any other man that's out there, who's providing, and they're in the position to. So, you got a lot of women, again, what they want, and this is what white society wants from white men. They want the extraction of work and labor from the men, but without the men having any sort of control, any sort of leadership, any sort of ownership. You know what I mean? And as far as men are concerned, it was like, wait. My blood, sweat, and tears? And what do I get out of this? Oh, well, you don't get anything. You get a smile and some bubble gum, man. Well, fuck that. I'll go back to firing up my Xbox and playing Battlefield 6. Fuck around and find out. Because go look at the white men's content. I just saw a video of freaking Aaron Clowry. He made the video going back to the point that I made a long time ago. You are not entitled, to not only you're not entitled to our discipline, you're not entitled to our labor. You're not entitled to it. You're not entitled to, I think the title of the video, what's the title of the video? Aaron Clary. What's the title of the video? Let's see if it's still up. Aaron Clary. Let me see. I'm pretty sure I was subscribed to him and then it unsubscribed me. Where's the title? Where's this video? Go to videos. I mean, just the title alone. What was the title of the video? The Parent Boomer, the Boss Boomers. Yeah, he's going in on boomers on this shit. Where's the damn video at? I don't know where it is. But basically, it was like, you're not entitled to, you're not entitled to our productivity or entitled to our labor or something like that. So yeah, he was. I just saw the title. Cap sent it to me, and I was like, yeah. These are universal concepts. What's going on in the white community is the same thing that's going on in the black community. Black men were just able to see it more because we were the marginalized group. We were able to see all this shit. White men, they're going through the grieving process right now. What is happening? Oh my God, what is going on? Oh, it's too much. Oh, it's the Jews. It's the woke left. It's Syrian refugees. It's the Muslims. It's oh my God, it's the Indians and their poop fest. Oh my God, like that's what they're going through right now. I can't find the video. I don't know where it is. But let me see if I can find that Charlie Kirk, because I done already made all the points I want to make. Charlie Kirk, black pilots, full context. Let's see if it comes up. Black pilots, full context. Where's that? DEI simp. No. Charlie Kirk worries when he sees a black pilot. No. You gotta watch the full clip. Charlie Kirk, DEI, black pilots. Nope, that's not it. Let me just type in full media claim. I think this is it right here. Let me open this up. I can't find the original clip because all the algorithms, all they want to take me to is all the propaganda about, the clip and people commenting on it. But here's Charlie Kirk responding to somebody who asked him a question about the DEI and the black pilots. And this is him responding. Now, I'm going to say my commentary. I'm going to play it. We're going to go through the whole thing. It's only 2 minutes long. And I'm going to point out what I disagree with, because I can respect his point. I understand what he's saying, but I'm going to tell you what I disagree with. Hold on, it's about to play. It's about to play. It's like, where's this at? Come on, play.
All right, let me tell you exactly what I said,
Sure thing,
okay?
thank you.
So this was in response, first and foremost, to United Airlines,
Yep.
saying that half of all their new pilots that they're going to hire are going to be women or people of color. Currently, they're 15%.
Okay.
So they want to go from 15% to 50%. A conversation then ensued about how every time affirmative action is employed, standards have to be lowered. There's not a single instance where that does not occur. So then I said, boy, if I see a black pilot, I'm now going to wonder, is that individual qualified? Were they selected because of their race? Comma, but that's not who I am, but this makes me think this way. And I stand completely by that statement.
Okay.
Secondly, let me just finish.
Sure, yeah, sorry.
DEI and affirmative action, what it does is it lowers the merit, it lowers the threshold of standards, and increases things that do not matter, such as skin color and ethnic background. So that is what I said.
Okay.
Now, a more important question to ask me is, Charlie, do you believe that black pilots can be qualified? Of course, any individual can be qualified. I want a hiring quota and program that only cares about qualification, not skin color. And thirdly, I would say, why does United Airlines care so much about the color of the pilots that are flying them? Shouldn't they just want the best pilots? When you guys are flying from Vegas to Dallas or Vegas to Chicago, are you going to feel safer or more comfortable when you hit turbulence if you have a diverse pilot? Or if you have a cockpit of the most qualified people that are there that have proven that they know how to land and fly planes?
How do you feel about legacies in that regard? Because legacies obviously have a leg up in getting into certain institutions just based on who went there before them that is close to them.
How do I feel? I think legacies are somewhat against merit, to be consistent.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean,
just want to make sure you're consistent.
but I will say, though, that the study of legacies have been done because their parents are smart. They're usually actually pretty smart. And so the moving average is that legacies aren't nearly as unqualified as some affirmative action people, but there are plenty of unqualified legacies that get into the Ivy League institutions, to be consistent.
Now, that was him defending himself. There's a lot of things that are problematic about what he said because black people were denied opportunities to be, to be a pilot and to be a pilot, to be an astronaut, to be, hell, I remember, you had that guy that was talking about, that being a quarterback in the NFL that's a thinking man's position. So white people have always barred black people out of, some of these positions that they would consider intellectual positions or positions that are best for white people. I mean, even going back to Jack Johnson, you got slavery and black people are inferior to white people, and then you got Jack Johnson beating white people's ass all over the place. Okay, and fucking white women, which is what they tried to get him on, which is taking women across state lines, for prostitution. You see, so again, whenever you have these, whenever the playing field is even, white people find out that they're not the best. Okay, they tried to bar black people out of playing baseball, and then when the doors opened up to allow, it's like was Jackie Robinson was he a DEI hire? You know what I'm saying? And he ended up being one of the best baseball players that ever played in the league. So white people, they create these barriers. They deny black people access to these, opportunities, stand up, say we're the best, and then argue that, that their mediocrity it should be the standard. I'm like, how do you know that you're the best if you're the only person in the space? You don't allow anybody else in the space on the basis of race. Like this is the contradiction, of itself, because you deny people the access to the opportunity on the basis of race, but then you have a problem with giving them the opportunity on the basis of race in response to you denying them on the basis of race. See, this is the whole ahistorical thing. And then even with the legacy students, do you hear what he said about the, the parents are smart and therefore the kids are going to be smart, which isn't always true, which he kind of, acknowledged on the back end. But the problem with that is white supremacy becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Black people are marginalized. Black people go to shitty schools. Black people get a shitty education, right? And then those same black people in those marginalized environments and marginalized communities have to compete against the white kids that, don't have to worry about the stresses of poverty, go to AP classes, have tutors and all that. I mean, this is the same argument that white people were bitching about in that article, Ghost of White People Past, where they were crying about the fact that, well, the Asians, they have tiger moms and they're getting their kids in AP classes and it's just not fair. And I want my kid to have a more balanced education where they're not spending 10 hours a day studying, where they can go to school, do, 2 hours of homework and then go and play with their friends. The Asians, and them just being strictly about education as immigrant parents and getting better grades than my kid and then getting into, these Ivy League schools disproportionately. Again, Asians are 41% of the Harvard 2028 class, yet they are only 6% of the U.S. population. They're overrepresented. They've been overrepresented per capita. They've been overrepresented. You see, so this is the freaking affirmative action is a Band-Aid meant to correct systemic racism. And these are shitty and lousy arguments to try to counter correcting that problem. How would you correct that problem? How would you correct that? Let the meritocracy begin. So in other words, you got 400 years of white people having a head start. Then you're going to say, oh, now let's have a race. And black people have, all the problems that are associated with poverty. And there's more white people who are, living, the good life, living in the suburbs, living in Toll Brothers style homes and shit. Right. And then you say, oh, let us compete. Let us compete. Right. like the black kid, even if he gets into college, he's barely in the building. He doesn't have a car when he's on campus. He's got to take the bus. You know how many brothers I drove? You know what I mean? I would catch him. I got the car. My parents, 2-parent home, all that. I had the car. You know how many brothers I drove? I saw at the bus stop. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, ain't that, isn't that Clarence? I'm like, yo, ain't motherfuckers in my class. Yo, I'm sitting there beeping the horn. Motherfucker like, oh, man, it's raining and shit. You know what I mean? Motherfucker comes running over. Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Hey, you got to give me a ride. I'm like, yeah, man, I got you. You know what I mean? Where you live? Oh, over here. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? Go take the motherfucker, drop him off and shit. Otherwise, he would have to take the bus or take the shuttle. You know what I mean? Or what used to get me is I'm like, the school didn't have a shuttle, and then they would have to take legitimately a bus, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be somewhere. You know what I mean? Where I could literally, roll out at 7:30. This motherfucker had to be up at 5 o'clock to catch the bus, take an hour bus ride with multiple stops to get to a particular location so that we could show up at the same spot at 7:30. You know what I mean? All I did was get up, throw my clothes on, brush my teeth, boom, grab my bag, I'm out the fucking door. But this person that comes from a single mothered home and he got to get on the motherfucking bus to get there at 5 o'clock in the morning and shit. And then he's got to take the same fucking bus ride back. You know what I mean? If anything, individuals like that, and I have known quite a few, they're better than the white people that hell, they're better than me. They're better than those people that have to that get all that free time because their parents have resources. They got it. Those are the people that should be telling the story. I had to get up every day and walk uphill with no shoes in the snow. Like literally, they had to do that. Literally, they had to do that because they didn't have a proper support system. You know what I mean? So if you just sit there and just, this is that just let the chips fall where they may. Let the cookies crumble where they may. This is that bullshit. Let the cookies crumble where they may. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Because you would never correct the wrongs that were done in the past. You would never correct the injustice in the past. White people are like, oh, well, aren't you displacing a white person? I'm telling you right now, a lot of those white people shouldn't have been there. Because if there was no racial injustice, if there was no racial inequality, those spots would have been filled by black people who would have been growing up the same way as white people that white people would have had to compete with. But see, white people don't want to compete. That's why it's bullshit that it's a meritocracy. Again, I say very clearly, if you're a group of people who is trying to maintain power, then meritocracy is bullshit. You can't try to maintain power and then claim, oh, it's meritocracy at the same time. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. No, you want to be in control. That is what you want to be. And again, it'll get to a point, as Amos Wilson so eloquently put it, you know, what would happen in New York City if suddenly all the black students started getting straight A's and they started going to college and they graduating and all that shit? You know what white people would say? Well, if you had too many overqualified black people, you know what they would say? Well, these jobs is for white folks. Y'all need to go off and build your own economic opportunities. These is for white folks. We didn't expect y'all to be here. But see, we don't have to, as Amos Wilson said, we don't have to have those nasty conversations. We don't have to have those conversations when black people fail or when they don't get there. See? You know, they get to save having having to actually state, well, we wouldn't share this with you anyway. They don't have to say that because you didn't get there. You didn't qualify. So since you didn't get to qualify, they don't have to talk about the ways in which they don't really want you there. They don't have to talk about how the ways in which they would discriminate you, even if you qualified, like what Clarence Thomas went through when he graduated from Yale and wanted to work at a law firm in New York in the 1980s. And instead had to go and work at some podunk freaking law firm in Mississippi. Fortunately, they gave him the opportunity, but that's not where he originally wanted to be. He was like, hey, I graduated from Harvard. I mean, excuse me, not Harvard, Yale. Right? You know, so, you know, again, you know, white people with this DI shit is this shit is retarded. You know, I mean, I was watching the video of the fucking white dude talk about the damn O-rings on the fucking Challenger and shit, telling them, you know, rubber and low temperatures, freaking liquid nitrogen don't mix. You know, freaking, if you ever see rubber, take a rubber ball, put it in some liquid nitrogen and then throw it on the ground, it will shatter like glass. And that's what happened in with the Challenger. Friggin' the O-rings failed. You know, and do you know that there were like, it was like a panel of like 9 people that overwrote him, that basically he said O-rings are going to fail. You know, I don't, you know, consent to the launch of the space shuttle, and he was overridden. Wrote a book about it. The other engineers at NASA or people who were on the panel or whatever they overrid him. Is that white DEI? Was the Hindenburg white DEI? Was the Titanic white DEI? You know what I mean? What other disasters? Is that Leaning Tower in San Francisco? Was that white DEI? You know, all these damn what show was that? It's not Modern Marvels, but there's a show that talks about, you know, disasters and shit like that, you know. You know, things collapsing, you know, damn, I'm trying to think, what was the, you know, was the Demon Core accident with the Manhattan Project, was that white DEI, right? You know, trying to fucking sit there and trying to get the damn core to go critical, or as close to critical as possible, you know, with the damn, I believe they were beta particles, trying to get the core to go critical with a screwdriver. If black people did what was done with the Demon Core in the Manhattan Project, oh my God, they were like, these black people, can you believe that they were actually trying to keep the core from going supercritical by simply holding a screwdriver? You know what I mean? Like, it would be all type of, see, that's why those blacks, you know, they can't play with nuclear power. They would be saying all type of shit. But because it was some white man, because it was them whites, You know, when they fuck up, you know, oh, I mean, it's all in the name of science. Friggin', I mean, even Alexander Graham Bell, you know, with his trial and error of trying to figure out which filament to use, you know, for the light bulb. When Nikola Tesla was like, look, hey, I can just do some equations and I could have told you which one, you know, was the right material to use for the proper filament for your light bulb. But no. We're going to, you know, discuss lesser minds and say that they're the greatest minds and go from there. You know, and there was some black man. Who was the black man that was involved? You know, what black man, let me see if this is true. Black man was involved with the light bulb. There's a whole bunch of black people, hidden figures type of black people, and white people get all the credit. The black man most directly involved with the invention and improvement of the light bulb was Lewis Howard Latimer, 1848 to 1928. He wasn't the original inventor of the light bulb, but he made the crucial innovation that made light bulbs practical and long-lasting. Here's what he contributed. He invented a carbon filament manufacturing process which allowed bulbs to burn longer and not break as easily. He worked with Alexander Graham Bell and later with Thomas Edison. Latimer wrote the first major book on electric lighting, Incandescent Electric Lighting, 1890. His improvements helped move electric lighting from a fragile novelty to mass market technology. Right? Mass market technology. You know, he one of them Washington Carver type of black dudes in the background. You know, but who gets all the credit? Who gets all the glory? Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison. That's who gets all the credit. That's who gets all the glory. Those are the names that we know about. Those are the names that are in the textbooks in the schools. You know, but when we talk about this, when we point this out, critical race theory, right? White people get all butthurt. You know, they were like, oh, no, you're trying to rewrite history. No, we're trying to expose the history that you all hid and buried in order to facilitate and reinforce the ideas and concepts of the system of white supremacy. That is what we are doing. And I can see I'm already at 1 hour and 20 minutes. I'm sitting there talking about this freaking FT Signifier making a 2-hour video. Let me end this video. I'm done. I'm finished. I did not mean for this video to be this long. I need to end this video. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I did, because I'm sick of just the stupidity, just the stupidity out here. I can defeat people's points. I don't need to reach. I don't need to lie. I don't need to gaslight. I don't need, to straw man in order to shoot down somebody else's idea. And I can acknowledge, even when it comes to my enemies, I can acknowledge like, okay, this is a valid point. However, let's examine that point, because that's all I want to examine. I don't want to examine the shit that we agree on, right? That's not fun. You know what I mean? I want to examine this like, okay, this part right here, that's not bullshit. It's not total bullshit, but I'm going to expose where what you're saying is flawed or what I think that you're omitting, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that's problematic here. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.
On the scene, diamond blingy, whole screen. Checkerboard Louis V. I'm so fresh and so clean. Stuff them bands in my jeans, slap them 30s in them things. Pull the trigger, let it sing. Then go smoke a Russian cream.
Boo, hold on.
Yeah.
Hello?
Where
we at? Oh, you want to know where I'm at? We outside!